Today, I'm delighted to welcome Jo McClintock, VP Brand and Marketing at Trainline. Jo shares why she encourages her marketing team to be scientists and how that's enabled the business to prove the value of brand to the CFO and board. Welcome, Jo. Jo,
Hi.
Thanks. Hi. Thanks very much for joining us. So great to have you on here. We always start off these podcasts with asking the guest just to explain a bit where they come from, to the background. I mean, you don't have to go back to primary school or anything like that.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
No. No need to go back to that far. But just to explain sort of where you come from, your background, and how you ended up in your current role.
Okay, so I didn't go to university, much to perhaps my parents' distaste at the time. I went straight into work. I decided I wanted to sort of take a job, take some time out before potentially doing something. Yeah. And I went and worked for Screwfix. So Screwfix are based in the West Country, which is where I grew up, and kind of ended up on a high potential scheme.
Right. So, and
they kind of plonked you in different places within the business to see where you thrive. And I ended up in marketing at one point. And I remember the CEO said to me at the time, like, I know you don't know what any of this stuff is, but if you start sinking, I'll throw you a life raft. And I was like, well, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So his first ask of me was like, we, at the time, Screwfix was, and still is, a very successful business. And it started in somebody's back shed in their garden in Yeovil and Somerset. Okay. And ended up a telephone business and into an e-commerce business, into a retail business. And so we had lots of customer data. And my job was to go in and basically figure out the segmentation model. And for someone who didn't even know what that word meant, it was really interesting, because it was kind of like fresh pair of eyes. How might you carve up this database, this huge customer database? At the time, I think it was about 15 million or something. It's probably 5-6 times that now. I don't know. And figure out who to send the catalogue to. So there's for those that you do or don't know, I don't remember the Screwfix catalogue. Yeah. So it was about 1.5 inches thick. Yeah. Quite expensive to mail in the post. So we had to make sure we got that, segmentation really right. That was Screwfix. Then I went on, I wanted to move out the West Country to London, and I ended up in a telephone company called Labara that was specialised in international calls. Moonpig, which is, many people know Moonpig. Yes. So brand director there. So looked after everything from segmentation to proposition to creative, and so on and so forth. Skyscanner, and then to Trainline, which is like where I am today. And for me, throughout that journey, I've kind of grown in scope and experience, but really specialised in e-commerce businesses with both physical and digital touch points. So.
I mean, that's been quite a journey, which is quite, maybe quite appropriate. You have ended up at Trainline, actually, given that, and how many sort of changes you've made of over the years. When you've come into Trainline, and you look at the sort of brand and the marketing strategies, sort of what's on your mind when you think about this? Because obviously it's a bit of a sort of, in some ways you could almost argue it's a bit of a unique product in terms of things. And on the one hand, it's obviously very mass market. Yeah. Because many people sort of take a train, but obviously then at the same time as well, you're very, very sort of focused on a particular product that has its own peculiarities and, around pricing and so forth. Yeah,
of course. So I think it's really interesting. So you're right. It's a mass market product, a mass market brand, should I say. There are lots of players within that field and do a similar thing to us who are much smaller. Obviously, Trainline came along about 15 years ago, I think it is now, at the right moment when basically the government at the time was splitting up the railways and ultimately it privatised it. So we came in and said, actually, this complete chaos and mess, as it were, we're going to solve it with one simple app. So obviously, right product, market fit, right time, and we've scaled from there. For Trainline, it is all about high frequency customer. So, rail is quite a low margin business. So you need volume. Therefore, you need to reach as many people as frequently as possible to kind of get that app on their phones and in their pockets.
Yeah.
So my job really is to make rail famous for two things, or make Trainline famous for two things. One is sustainability. So rail is one of the most sustainable transport methods, and not only do we have a societal role to play as a brand this day and age, but also it helps grow the overall category and size of the prize when you actually take people out of different car or air. And the British public sort of rank recycling much higher than choosing a sustainable transport method. So for example, recycling in your home is about the 60th best thing you can do.
Right.
Where living with that, and people rank that as like number 2.
Okay.
And living without a car, obviously wouldn't say you would do it all the time. People rank that much lower, and actually it's up there. The number 1 best thing you could do. So, so part 1 is that. Second part is make Trainline famous, and number 1 choice. So ultimately, number 1 choice has to be a product that meets customer needs first and foremost. So part of my job is to work with a product team and design team to go, how do we make sure that we're finding best prices or surfacing best prices, or value for money for what you get from the app. How do we make sure we help you with disruption? How do we help you make sure you're on time or use a seamless user experience? So everything we do is focused on the customer, and to enable me to then sort of pile marketing dollars in to say, actually, here's what we offer. And actually, hopefully, guys, this really answers a problem space for you. And ultimately, we can be your number 1 choice.
Okay. And it's an interesting sort of, it was about to sort of describe you as the Just Eat of train purchases.
Similar, yeah.
It's a similar sort of dynamic.
Yeah.
I guess what you might argue there is that if you get something like a food delivery service, you could say, but tell me where I'm wrong, that that's a bit more of an impulse purchase. That it's very much driven by the immediacy.
Yes.
Something like planning a train journey tends to be a little bit more thought process that goes into
less discretionary for
less
sure.
discretionary.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm just wondering with that whether that also as well has any impact on the channel strategy and how you look at that, and sort of whether it's sort of changes the dynamic.
Great question. In lots of ways. So obviously there are some trips in the year that you might take, which is, I don't know, going home for Christmas or a beach trip, or there might be in the summer holiday, there might be things you would plan. You kind of, in your mind, you're definitely going to take a train then. Or it might be the fact that you have to take a train for work. I do myself as part of your daily commute. So it's kind of a naturally planned thing, but sort of a high frequency thing. Rail is less discretionary. It's not something you go, you wake up in the morning and go, do you know what, I'm going to take a train today. It's very, it's less, you're less likely to do that. And it's not to say that it doesn't happen. So for us, like for me and for customers, it's that if you want the best price, you need to plan in advance. You're going to get the best ticket price anyway. So what we'll do as much as possible is convey to customers that, hey, actually to get the best possible price, buy in advance, and we'll lean into seasonal moments or moments we know where they have previously spiked in advanced ticket sales. And so that might be a seasonal campaign around Christmas. It might be, for example, in Europe, we're just doing with Eurostar the ski season ticket releases on at the moment.
Right.
I know it feels really weird.
Yeah, exactly.
30 degrees in London right now. But that's a key moment. And so that definitely has a big role to play. But in terms of the channel strategy around that, it will depend on kind of, if you're a commuter and it's your regular commute, how we might attract you versus somebody who's using it for a leisure experience would be quite different, I would say. So
and it sounds as though it would be in terms of the way that you would approach that customer. And
yeah, totally. I mean, I'll give you one example. Station advertising is a big part of our mix. Predominantly, it does a good priming job because rail is high frequency. It's not like, you have that one moment to tell people what you do, why you should buy and convert them. We know by being there when they are in sort of close proximity to the journey itself, it primes for the next time, predominantly. So for us, for a commuting, sort of a commuter and commute proposition, time of day is a massive aspect. So like, digital out of home, we can plan that, programmatically really well. And then things like seasonal moments, we'll kind of like be picking media that really supports either like a period of time where we can get high reach, or it could be actually, I don't know, it supporting a broader mix, as it were.
Now, I want to ask you about something you've been it's been mentioned in the press, about of the need for your staff, to be more aware of the process of segmentation.
Yep.
And then also to become scientists.
Yes.
Can you just talk through that? Because that, for many people listening, that will be, as it were, it will be they'll be thinking, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah.
What does that mean? What do we do with it?
Yeah. So it's actually, it's kind of think like scientists. And ultimately, I always think about science as a beauty between somewhere between, I don't know, exploration, art, maths. There's kind of always a level of certainty, uncertainty when it comes to science, right? And I think it's a really amazing topic. And ultimately, when it comes to marketing, there is a lot of certainty and uncertainty, right? And if you want to be able to invest, in certain things, whether it be campaigns or whether it be customer groups or whether it be ideas, you need to be able to take bets, educated bets, and also, back that up with like some kind of like results, right? And understanding that, this money you're about to invest is not a bad idea, but there is some risk in it, right? And ultimately, if you don't do that and push the boundaries, everything becomes reductive, because ultimately you're just playing within the same pond of customers, or whatever it is, whatever kind of fishing analogy, marketing analogy you want to use. But ultimately you're just, everything becomes reductive. So for me, thinking like scientists means about having hypotheses. So actually, and hypotheses might be, give you one example we did around sustainability was, we believe that the biggest challenge is people just don't know it. And then ultimately, once they know it, they might choose it. And actually, that failed. Like, it wasn't enough for people to know about rail being sustainable for them to switch. And then obviously, as you understand the drivers of why people might do what they do, then you iterate and you go, actually, okay, well, my hypothesis is that if I don't demonstrate, you can have pride in taking the train, but because it's sustainable and you can pay the lowest possible price, well, guess what? It's going to work more. So ultimately, everything we do is hypothesis led. And that doesn't mean you don't lose any risk taking or curiosity, because ultimately within a hypothesis there's an element of risk.
Of course.
So that really was what drives the plan. And
you can't guarantee.
Absolutely. We've made mistakes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But we don't look at it as that was a big failure. It was like the whole idea of a hypothesis, you prove or disprove. And therefore, even if you disprove something, you go, okay, well, we don't do that again. We'll do this instead. So
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting approach, and it's probably something that I think, listening to your explanation, many people would think, okay, that's the sort of thing that maybe we do. It's not just it hasn't really been put in such a succinct way.
Yeah. Okay.
As you just put it there.
Hopefully that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. We're going to have a whole load of scientists now in the advertising and marketing industry.
Yeah, maybe.
That'll be interesting. Yeah.
Obviously, I think for me, it's making sure you have the data and the rigor. And have the right, you can go and do these things and you go, I think it kind of worked. Well, that's probably not a great test setup, but so make sure you have that testing structure in place. It's going to give you the answer back. So.
And that is key again. It's something we've talked about often here. The quality of the data, the rigor, making sure it's making sure that it is, quite frankly, it's usable and it's high quality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that actually leads quite nicely onto the next question, which is, the role of marketing is to support the business.
Yep.
Yeah, and again, it's another topic that speak a lot about on this series. When you go in and speak to the CEO and CFO, about marketing, about its importance, but also as well explaining the differences between brand and performance marketing, the importance of both, how you use both, and the data that you actually provide to back up your case. How do you do that? Because there'll be a lot of people will be thinking, we'd love to be able to go in to our management teams and just explain how marketing is so vital to the company's future.
Yes.
But we just don't feel as though we can do that, although we haven't got the skills to do so.
That's really interesting. I think I've learned from my mistakes as well in the past on this one, for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess, trying to tell someone why marketing is important specifically as a discipline and what it can do to somebody who is alien to it, they're just not going to hear it well, right? They're it's going to be words that largely go in one ear out the other, because they're I'm not really sure what that means, And so for me, first and foremost, develop great relationships with your CEO and CFO, so that there's trust.
Yeah,
that's kind of part one, I would always say. The second, and empathy to each other's understanding of each other's worlds. The second job, I think, is you as a marketer, you should always be pushing the thinking, and the thinking isn't just about where you put your dollars. It's also about what's the product and what's the vision and all of those things. So showing up to the table, pushing the thinking, as well as like pushing for the investment and the results. So pushing the thinking comes often, you get to do that and get permission to do that once you've delivered the results.
Yeah.
So when it comes to delivering the results, which is probably the most challenging part for people, I think this whole idea around having a hypothesis that you can test out, or a series of hypotheses, is part of that.
Yeah.
Because you are showing that you are outcome focused, and you have a very clear plan to know whether this is going to do the right things or not. Also, start with the customer.
Yep.
And make sure that starting with the customer is both data-led and emotionally led. If you go in with an attitudinal segmentation without the kind of data-backed aspect of it, you're not likely to get very far, because it's too abstract.
Yep. Bring
it into some data, link it to the hypothesis, and then build a plan around that. And so actually, for example, let's take Spain, for example, which is one of the markets we're in. We're going to target these customers on, in this way, and they're worth X, and that's this size, and this is the CPA, and we hypothesize we can achieve by doing this, and this is how we know we're succeeding.
Right.
And I think then you keep coming back and giving them information. You build that trust over time. You say when you've messed up.
Yeah. Fair enough,
and all of that, and then ultimately, like, people get to understand how that operates. Now, we then really generally operate with a structure where the percentage of our spend is spent on hypothesis-led testing, so there's risk there, and then a percentage of our spend is on proven channels. So it's like a constant cycle of iteration of like, we don't know how to do this thing yet.
Yeah.
We think we could do really well, act like scientists, prove, disprove, and then if it works, put it into the kind of pile of things that could be proven channels, as it were.
Okay.
And just keep going.
No. But it's very sort of to go back to the beginning of what you said.
Yeah.
It feels as though a lot of those sort of points that you raised all come back to a single thing, which is trust.
Yeah. I would. That's a really good point. I think at the end of the day, you can be playing with a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's not yours ultimately, right? And obviously if there's trust in you to spend it in the right way and deliver the results, and you continuously revert back and forth on that. I mean, there are, and this is where it comes back to pushing the thinking. There are other drivers. You get external headwinds, right? Things that happen in the industry, in the market. But you need to bring to the table these are the headwinds. This is what we think is the impact on the growth. Therefore, you're not going to see this. What we thought was going to happen isn't going to happen. Or it might be, actually we've got a problem with our product market fit, or something else, maybe another aspect that you bring in, but actually don't, I think don't just show up with, well, this is a problem, that's why that didn't work. It's actually also show up going, these are things that are coming into play, which we didn't anticipate. This is the estimation of the impact of that. Yeah. And therefore, what I showed you 3 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, 6 months ago, this is likely to happen now. And I think, and you're right, that is all about trust, because you might not have like a black and white answer, but at least you're showing up with a series of data points that kind of go, I think this might happen, or but I don't fully know, and then you just keep them informed, and ultimately it does work. I mean, sometimes they'll ask you questions, you're like, well, I don't know that, but I think it just helps build that trust.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a great point sort of on that. I want to pick up on that point about brand fame.
Yes.
Making trains famous, and, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that sounds a great sort of tagline. Yeah, in terms of that. How does that, when you're approaching that, as it were, tagline, how do you think about it in terms of your brand, of your brand, and then against sort of your channel strategy and how you push across?
I think I'm going
to.
I'll pick a recent campaign because it's kind of like it does a lot of that in different ways. So one of the things we really care about is sustainability, and we have a separate brand, a sub brand called I Came by Train. I Came by Train means, if when you arrive at your destination, what's the best thing you can say? I came by train, because it means something for the planet. So we've had that brand for a few years now, and one of the things we do is partner with Glastonbury Festival, and not many brands get to do that. We're really fortunate, and it is because it has a societal positive impact. So for us, making rail famous for being sustainable, in that example, we use the I Came by Train brand. And obviously it's like, well, what are the moments where people their habits may be interrupted? Well, figuring out how to get to Glastonbury is one of those. So there's there's a moment in time where it's music festival, sports quite often, where it might not be something you regularly go to, therefore you don't have a regular understanding of what your habit might be to get there, so you rediscover new options. And obviously within that experience of purchasing and buying, there's kind of like a customer journey, right? There's kind of that discovery. So you need to be there, getting people rail in their mindset that it's an option, and a option that's good value and easy to do, and then showing up in the moments where they're gonna see and hear and understand that. So for I Came by Train, we need to be upfront when they're planning their festival trip to Glastonbury, and also right down at the end, at the moment when they arrive. So from a channel strategy there, we we got a ton of artists together. We called it was a Heroes Network. People like Annie Mac, Sam Ryder, and lots of other artists that were playing at Glastonbury. And we got them to basically pledge that they were going by train, and they did, and promote I Came by Train and getting to the festival by train. In our app, we promoted the Heroes Network, and again highlighted for people searching for Glastonbury or festivals how they could do it and when they could do it. So lots of push notifications. So that was kind of more social and video in terms of its approach. And then when it came to Glastonbury itself, and actually the festival, we found where people were most likely to travel from by train, and we used channels like Out of Home to prime them to say, actually thinking of going to Glastonbury this year, be a hero, be part of the Heroes Network, go by train, and save money. So, and then ultimately right through the whole sort of pre and during, we then activated it in stations. So we had activations with artists, so Sam Ryder, for example, in a station and on a train. That went viral, which was pretty cool. And then when you arrived at different destinations near the site, things like Out of Home played a really key role, because obviously it's a physical touch point in a moment where people interact with your brand and also can see that. And then finally, at the festival, we greeted people with a hero's welcome. So we had some great stuff. So,
God, that's perfect.
Yeah, hopefully that gives you an end to
No. No, it's amazing sort of,
Yeah, it's good fun.
Campaign, I bet it was as well.
Yeah, really
and
good fun.
It brings in different parts as well.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Great. We always end these sort of podcasts with asking for sort of suggestions, tips that you would give to people listening.
Yes.
Sort of on here. And I guess, it's going to be slightly different, because normally what I ask is just say, look, can you give us one sort of piece of advice that you would give? But sort of I'm going to ask you sort of in terms of several different areas.
Okay.
So first of all, when you actually do talk to the CEO and the CFO, so that in terms of, again, for those marketers listening out there, you feel as though they're a bit intimidated, and so forth. But then also as well, how you explain the sort of mix that you should have between the brand and the performance strategies as well, and how you come to that equation.
Okay, so when CEO, CFO, always start with outcomes. So, for example, the outcome of our summer campaign is to, increase sales by X% and awareness by 2 points or whatever. I'm just making those numbers up, obviously. That's the outcome. So they know everything you're about to tell them, what the answer you're looking for, effectively. Then go into what's the insight that tells you that that's the right goal or right outcome, and also that what you're about to tell me in terms of the plan is going to make me feel comfortable. And then finally, and actually within that, what hypotheses are you going to test? And then go into what am I going to go and do? What does it look like? What is the plan? I think just that upfront, like, this is the outcome I'm looking for. This is why I've got to this outcome. And these are the things I'm going to go and test. And then this is how I'm going to do it, is going to make sure that you don't take, if you go the other way, you're going to lose them. And I quite often see marketers start with the plan and the idea and actually end up at the outcomes. And the trouble is the CFO and CEO are going, I'm not quite sure why we're doing this. All the way through, you're talking through the lovely idea and the plan. And at the end of it, you talk to the outcome, and then they've got to do the connecting the dots.
Between the...
So really just flip it. So for them, it connects the dots immediately, and then you go into
That's a great point, actually. And
then I think on the other point, I would say, again, it really depends on what you're solving for, right? Like if I don't know, you're both, if it's kind of like sales growth at X, profit, ultimately you're going to hopefully understand to some degree what are the levers that are going to drive that in the short, medium, and long term. So you need to be looking at short, medium, long term multipliers, which hopefully you might have some analytics that helps you understand that. If you don't have any analytics that help you understand that, then obviously a part of your plan could be create some analytics that helps you understand the short, medium, long-term multipliers. And then for me, it's going, well, what of all these channels that I understand is going to drive those, and do I put into play? And for me, usually in most businesses, you end up with like a percentage split roughly. And I've always it's always been around 50-50 or 60-40.
Interesting.
And it sometimes it can be higher depending on what category you're in. But largely that hasn't changed over time. And I think maybe as you become a brand that's perhaps more embedded and like, or different times, different moments in your life cycle, and you've got a high organic traffic or whatever, the likes of Airbnb, you see it in the press, they don't do performance marketing. I'm sure they do some. I don't know. I'm just speculating. But, they've got very, very high brand awareness. They've probably got amazing brand love, high penetration on device usage, I'm not sure about. So therefore, they can afford to kind of shift their mix. But it might come at a stage, may come, like, I don't know, a year down the line where they've got to move it back. So I think it really does depend on your life cycle.
No, again, it's sort of, horses for courses.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
That's great. Thanks very much, Jo.
Thank you.
It's been brilliant.
It's been super fun, thanks.
Yeah. Sorry you couldn't continue longer. Thank you, Jo. It's been fantastic to hear how your scientific test and learn approach is transforming Trainline's brand strategy, elevating Trainline in the minds of consumers. If there's anything you would like to ask us or hear more about, you can visit the JCDecaux Marketing Hub online. We hope you enjoyed listening, and wherever you get your podcasts, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.